Thanks for having us, Hunter. Really appreciate it. So awesome. Well, very excited to be with the Power to Fly team and all the folks out there in virtual land. We'll do some quick intros, and we're super excited to have this discussion with the group. So I've first of all, I've been here at Workiva for 3 years. Uh, been actually in a customer facing role similar to Leah and Kevin prior to going full time into this role back in September of 2022. So my role is to kind of oversee and provide as much consultative assistance to all of our, BERGs, business employee resource groups, and also just drive our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives amongst all Workivians. Great job, Hunter, on saying Workivians. So why don't we introduce ourselves and then we'll get into our discussion. Aaliyah, you want to share a little bit about yourself first?
Yes, thank you. And yes, you did get it right, Hunter. So I struggle with that as well. So I'm actually pretty proud of you. So my name is Aaliyah Olds, and I am a solutions architect here at Workiva. Actually come from a non-traditional tech background. I spent 9 years in human resources, and the last four I functioned as an HR project manager. Just looking for a career change and just more advancement, more challenging, and an innovative environment. So happy to be here with Kevin and Desmond today.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaliyah. And Kevin, introduce yourself if you don't mind.
Sure. Hey, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, my name's Kevin Purvis. I am my official title at Workiva is Solutions Architect, and I've been here for about 2 years. But the side thing I'm doing is also the collaboration pillar lead of the newly created Black BERG at Workiva. So kind of like a COO, making sure all the other pillars that we may get into a little bit more kind of get what they need. So I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Aaliyah and Kevin, for providing those introductions. So obviously, we're all here to learn as much as we can. Obviously, during this historic month, but specifically, with Workiva, as Kevin mentioned, we just last year kind of converted from what we called employee resource groups or ERGs to BERGs. So it just kind of added the business piece in that. And there's many reasons why we did that. One of which is, we're a software company providing, various reporting. And one of the things that there's a market for a lot is the ESG market. So we have some goals as it relates to that. And, we want to make sure that we're setting up our BERG members and leadership to be able to promote those goals as much as possible. So thinking about obviously talent, within Workiva, and one things that we didn't share yet is that Workiva is based in Ames, Iowa, and there's maybe not a whole lot of folks on the call that know where Ames, Iowa is, but it is a kind of suburb of Des Moines, Iowa, so about 40 minutes away from there. So not a hugely diverse, part of the country. However, 50% of our company is remote, and we obviously have the good fortune of having folks like Aaliyah and Kevin as part of our team. However, like most companies, we would love to have a more diverse workforce, and that's why we partner with organizations like Power to Fly. And one of the things we were chatting about yesterday was a recent report that came out from the McKinsey Institute of Economic Mobility, and some of you may have seen this come out on LinkedIn as well. And it was talking about specifically the Black talent gap in tech, due to a lot of things. Obviously, we all have heard about and seen a lot of the layoffs that have happened recently, but they were specifically focused on that gap could potentially widen dramatically in the Black tech space by 2032. And as of now, Blacks are holding approximately 8% of tech jobs, and of those 8%, about 3% of that is at the C-suite level. So so if it widens from there, that tells us that we have a lot of work to do. So just to frame our discussion, a little bit. So just getting into some questions, that we want to kind of tackle, and perhaps we can tackle some other questions that come in through the chat as well. But Aaliyah, specifically for you, and you talked a little bit about it, you're coming from a non-traditional background. I know you've been here a short period of time, but maybe tell us about some of those things that have stood out for you from a cultural standpoint. At Workiva, what made you kind of choose Workiva amongst, I'm sure, other options that you had during your most recent job search?
Yeah, thank you for that, Desmond, and especially for those statistics. I think that's really important for us to focus in on it and really highlight why we're here talking today. So, as I shared briefly about why I chose to make the career pivot, I also wanted to highlight some other areas. So, like Kevin, I am from North Carolina. I'm based here in North Carolina as well. I actually grew up in Durham, North Carolina. And if you know anything about North Carolina and Durham, Durham has a certain stereotype. It's not true. It's not true. It's not true for everything. But one thing that motivated me in this career search, I actually graduated from Winston-Salem State University, and I did the whole thing where I went to college, I got a good job, et cetera. I went down that cycle. But what I realized throughout my career is I just desired a little bit more, and I desired more as in I wanted to be able to have a life outside of work, so that work-life balance, but most people call it work-life balance, and I like to call it life-work balance. Once I get off the clock, I want to be done with the job. That's not to say that I don't enjoy the work that I do. I want to be great at what I do at work, and I want to be Aaliyah at the end of the day. I want to be able to do all the things that I enjoy doing outside of work, because we don't necessarily go to work with the intent for that to be our lives, but sometimes it becomes that, and it can impact us in many different ways. So me, a lot of people may not know this about myself, but I'm also a mental health advocate. And that played a big role in my life, because as growing up, my mother was a nurse, and she actually worked very hard, and, like a lot of people's parents. But what came with her working so hard is she actually suffered from a brain aneurysm because of overworking. Then I actually lost an uncle to a brain aneurysm because of overworking. Then I also lost my fiance, not in death, but mentally. He literally lost his mind because of overworking. He had a mental breakdown. So one thing that just was a wake up call for me to say, like, okay, well, I'm really good at my work, but I need to find a way to balance. So that's why I took a step back from that career and tried to make a change. So as you shared, Desmond, throughout that change, I did go through a process where I was interviewing at a few different offers, and I didn't take those for many different reasons, but the biggest reason was because I didn't feel connected with the actual software that that the company was promoting. I wanted to make sure it was something that everyone would be able to use, especially because we were in the middle of the pandemic and they were going through another recession. So that was important to me. But also, one thing that my director said stood out to me in the interview process is why she chose to come to Workiva is it provided mental security and emotional security, or psychological safety. So that was the, ding, ding, ding for me. And it made me feel like, okay, well, she understands. And for her to say that, and she's not a woman of color, she's a woman, but she's not a woman of color. For her to be able to experience that in her career, and her to be able to come to Workiva and have that sense of safety and peace, that is one of the reasons why I said yes to this organization. In addition to saying that Workiva offers mental health benefits for free. Also saying that Juneteenth is a paid holiday here, so I couldn't show up as myself. I always say that I'm not good at code switching, and I don't think that I need to, because a lot of the times we feel like we have to change things about ourselves in order to be taken seriously or be seen as professional. So, every day I'm always going to be myself. I have locks, I don't change that. I don't do anything to alter my appearance. And that shouldn't impact the work that I'm able to do. So that's one of the reasons that I chose to come to Workiva. It's a long list there, but I just wanted to share that there.
Yeah, no, that's helpful, Leah. Thanks for sharing. And I definitely took some nuggets from that life work balance. I like that. So Kevin, how about you? Obviously, you've been here, as you mentioned, a little bit longer than Aaliyah. So, just interested in maybe some of the things that kind of stand out, or maybe even stood out, kind of in your initial process as you spent time here at Workiva. So,
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Some of what Aaliyah said kind of resonates with me because I think especially work-life balance, because at the last company I was at, I was in a similar role, but it was a lot of traveling, a lot of hard work, not a lot of time off. And I knew we were about to build a family, and the mental stress, I could not keep up with that with the other place. But then the other thing that kind of made me choose Workiva is this is like around 2020, we were all at home during the pandemic. The George Floyd murder happened, and I was trying to watch to see how companies reacted to that news. Like, did you try to create a safe space for your Black employees? Did you reach out? Did you even mention it at all? And the previous company I was at didn't really talk about it. But I had a friend that works here at Workiva, Kevin Edwards, told me about the response that our CEO made. And that right there told me like they are not shying away from it at this company. Clearly, it's something that is recognized. And then in joining 2 years ago, for the first time, I think I've been able to really be myself because I've worked at a lot of smaller, privately owned companies and was usually, let's be honest, the token at a lot of those. So I wasn't at a place where I was seeing a lot of us, but seeing that there was a bunch coming into Workiva and we've started to increase that growth, let me just be myself. I could be open and honest, try and share my experiences. And Workiva gave me a chance to at least join the BERG so I can kind of reach back and help others because I wouldn't have gotten anywhere in my career without help. And I wanted to make sure I was empowered to do that. And I feel like I get that here at this company.
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing, Kevin. And I definitely echo some of those sentiments coming here to Workiva and automatically, kind of making, relationships either amongst my initial team or, the folks that I work with day to day or, via the Blackbird or back in those days when I started, it was the ERGs, but super excited to hear that from both of you. So, just thinking more even deeper into, culture of companies, and both of you have been around at previous, organizations. So definitely want to dive into that a little deeper. Aaliyah, first with you. So, thinking about, company culture, you hear the word culture a lot, and sometimes it can be portrayed different ways at different companies, but just interested in some of those things, Leah, maybe that you talked about and maybe some that you didn't talk about in terms of what, were almost some of those must-haves, in terms of your career search that you recently went through. So,
Yeah. So, so my company culture is going to be, my experience is going to be a little different because I work for two main sectors. So I worked in the public sector, and then I also worked in healthcare. And I had a very similar experience both, where those sectors have been around for so long, and a lot of people go into those careers with the intent to retire in 20 or 30 years. So sometimes you're not going to be met with people that are very open to change and accepting change. Me being someone who's always looking for a solution, looking for a way to improve processes, and I'm really excited about technology. It wasn't always welcome, like some of my newer ideas, even if it was going to help people's job um, be better or easier, or things of that nature. So I kind of shared this a little bit earlier. Like I always try to find ways to do things in a simpler fashion. I'm all about productivity and efficiency. So sometimes that can be met with resistance if you're coming from certain industries. So that was also something that I noticed, that it's not really me, so to speak, right? It's just the industry that I'm in. It's just, this is the culture. So a lot of times when we look at a company and say, oh, this is just the culture of the company, but it's not really the culture of the company alone. It might be the industry. Because I've worked for several organizations, and the culture of the industry was exactly the same. So the biggest thing that I would say from that is coming to Workiva, or just trying to break into tech, which was the initial idea, was, of course, I wanted that, but I also wanted to be met a culture that was going to be accepting of me raising my hand and asking questions, and not like, oh my God, I did it again, and I'm just trying to learn, right? Or me saying, oh, look, this is what I found. This is something that can help our team, be more productive. This is something that can help you get this report done a lot quicker rather than you sitting on the computer for 3 or 4 hours after, closing time. And then also just if you finish your work in a certain amount of time and you do it well, it's not being met as, oh, you're not working hard enough because you're not spending an hour and a half or 3 hours later. Or, if you don't feel like you're just having a day, because sometimes I have my days where I just want to, be by myself and I don't want to go out to lunch with my colleagues at this particular time, and just, hear whatever they're talking about, then that wouldn't be met with resistance to say like, oh, she's not a team player or anything of that nature. So just being able to accept people as they are, and have that individuality, but also support the way that they learn, the way that they collaborate. That was a big driver for me switching from my previous industry, which was it was a great career. I did very well in it, but it's certain things that I learned about myself over the 9 years, excuse me, over the last 9 years that I needed to just pick up and go to a different environment. So that's what I was looking for as far as tech goes. But I just said that, I'm blessed nonetheless to just find a company that has been so welcoming, has been so supportive, and the resources are here, and people like yourself and Kevin and individuals that are not even on the team or even in the same country have just been very, very helpful, welcoming. So that's one of the reasons why I think this culture here at Workiva is just, a 180.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Leah. And I wholeheartedly agree with you. So, Kevin, how about you just diving deeper into, kind of your experiences here at Workiva, and love to hear more about, kind of what keeps you here,
Yeah.
after 2+ years. I'm sure, there is the ability, if we want to right, to go back to those, 80-hour work weeks. It sounds like that's not what either of you are interested in, but other than that, definitely looking to get additional context from you on, what keeps you here, from a cultural standpoint after a couple of years. So,
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing, and I'll elaborate on, is opportunity. When I came here, when I first started, there's like kind of a smaller group for like DEI initiatives within the department. And I came with the idea to start a discussion group, and Workiva didn't say no. And we've started to have discussion groups that started to grow and grow in size. We've talked about neurodiversity, we've talked about addiction, we talked about a lot of heavy hitting topics, and the company didn't say anything to prevent that. They allowed that. Within the BERG, we're starting to come up with a mentorship program, because I saw a question, one of the questions in the chat is, how can we get more C-suite executives? Like, we're trying to put together a mentorship program to have some of the people that haven't been here as long, maybe under 2 years, talking to somebody that's over 2 years, and we can start getting formal mentors that can help you elevate yourself to that level. Just seeing that Workiva has been open, like even creating this BERG, letting us run with it. I mean, there's some guardrails, but we've been pretty much set free to do what we want, and kind of put forth out there what we've always wanted. Because I know in my past companies, again, I mentioned how I was like the token in like smaller company. That opportunity wasn't there for me, and we know when you're in a company when that opportunity is never going to come. But here at Workiva, I always feel like there's always a chance for me to go higher up. And that's what's been keeping me here those 2 years. And also the workload. Like, people are looking out for you to make sure that you're not working like 80, 90% of the time, traveling, et cetera. And Aaliyah mentioned earlier about some of the holidays we have, like Juneteenth is huge. We have mental health days where the whole company just gets a break, which was unheard of for me in other companies. So those kind of things is what keeps me coming back and keeps me happy here.
yeah. Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing, Kevin. And I definitely agree with you. I remember back when I think you and I were part of those discussions about Juneteenth with, senior leadership, and there was like, never a question as to if it should be. It's just, they're obviously trying to gather information and being, of course, having that equity to other, backgrounds as well. So, but yeah, it's been an awesome experience. So thinking through, as we kind of get towards the end of our discussion here, want to definitely touch on a little bit of some of the questions that were raised in the chat as well, in terms of, how we can ensure, our voices are amplified and heard throughout the company. And I know the BERG is certainly one way to do that. But Leah, definitely interested in your perspective as a Black Workivian. You've definitely already shared some of those those tidbits, but other ways perhaps we can continue to make sure that our voices are heard and amplified throughout the company. So
Yeah, so you definitely touched on one of joining any business employee resource group that may be at your company. So that way you have that stance. That's the best way to get involved. If your company also has town halls, joining those and trying to see who you can get connected with to be able to share some of your sentiments or just be able to pose certain questions that can start a discussion would be beneficial as well. And then just bringing it back home to have those discussions within your household with family members, because as you shared earlier, there's not a lot of us, right? There's not a lot of Black individuals that work in tech, and then those that do work in tech, we might feel like we are the token of our family. We might be the only one, so we don't feel like our family is going to understand when we talk about it, or they just assume that our job is so technical that they can't do it, or there's no other jobs within tech for them as well based on their skill set. So I would say start having those conversations within your household, within your community, and then bring it back to your team and start talking to your leadership. So your manager and whomever is on your team to be able to lead those discussions and see what ways they're trying to impact or impact your company as far as diversity goes. Maybe even getting with someone from the DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion board, like Desmond here in Workiva, and just having those discussions just to see what the company is already doing and to also be able to provide additional ideas. But it's definitely going to start with you, and just being confident enough to have those conversations and comfortable enough to have those conversations.
yeah, that's very importantly. I wholeheartedly agree. So Kevin, how about you? It's kind of same question. Anything you'd add to that in terms of ways we can continue to make sure our voices, our Black voices, are amplified and heard? So
Yeah, I want to echo a lot of what Aaliyah said, and something I took away from kind of a friend of mine named Sean that I worked with at their last company was the importance of building a network. And I think it's important that whatever you can get yourself into, whether it's a BERG or you're going to like product development meetings or anything outside of your normal job search, just to meet people, maybe it's at the water cooler, just making those friends. Because also we all know that we need allies, and the more you meet people where they are, they get to know you, they're going to want to help you, and you can probably help them back. And like just kind of building that out, like just making yourself seen, because there's a saying, closed mouths don't get fed. If you don't speak up or make the effort, nobody's going to notice you. So kind of putting yourself out there a little bit, making sure people know who you are, know your story, and that'll get you known to where people like, I want to be an ally to this guy. How can I help out? And as they hear more of our struggles and kind of understand what we're going through on a daily basis, that'll be a way to start to slowly change a culture. As more people start treating us as humans, they'll start to get it.
yeah, absolutely. And we're excited just this month. I mean, this is one of the many things we're doing this month in terms of the Black BERG and we're thankful, for the participation here at Power to Fly. But we're actually we've put out some internal resources just today on being a better ally to the Black community. Kevin will be co-leading a discussion next week internally on being a better ally, to the Black community. So it's, to your point, the constant, kind of conversations and being willing to, as Aaliyah alluded to, raise your hand and say, hey, I want to learn. I want to be a part of this. I want to just continue to develop, whether it be career-wise, personal-wise, just get to know people. And, as you said, Aaliyah, sometimes you may or not, want to get to, you want to be in your zone, so to speak. But I think that's what, the BERGs have strived to do, is create kind of those safe psychological safety places, but also we've got brave spaces to have those, open and honest, conversations with both membership and allies. So, Kevin and I have had some of those conversations before, as we're very much alike in terms of trying to drive change and initiative and things of that nature. And Leah is very much in that boat as well. So, but Aaliyah, any final thoughts, you'd like to leave with the group, in terms of just those that are out there pursuing their dream, so to speak, as young, or from a tech perspective, any final words you'd like to leave with the group?
Yes. Well, first, thank you for the opportunity. And I would just like everyone to focus on, be able to identify what's important to you. That was the biggest driver for me when it came to switching careers and also choosing a company. Don't just look at the name of the company, or they're this big company that everybody's aware of. Take some time to really network, as Kevin said, people that are already working with the company. We have a platform for that. It's called LinkedIn. You can find anybody that you want within the company to start networking with and building those relationships first, and find out what your non-negotiables are, and then find a company that aligns with that and a team that's going to support that as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaliyah. Kevin, how about you? Any last thoughts from you?
Yeah, I want to echo what Aaliyah said, and also want to thank the Power to Fly for allowing us to come here. I think also, as you learn yourself, like knowing your boundaries, like sometimes in any of our jobs, we get pushed around or pushed into things we don't want to do, but setting like healthy boundaries, like knowing this is as far as I'm going to go, and finding a company that'll allow you to do that, that won't try to work you to death, that will have an environment that allows you to be open. Like Aaliyah said, just doing your homework, networking, finding out what you can, not focusing on just the name, but what have you heard about the culture? Have you heard any horror stories, anything like that? Keeping all that in mind and knowing where you want to be, I think will help you find the right fit for yourself.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thanks so much for having us, Hunter and team, and we really appreciate it. And we look forward to hopefully participating at future events. So
thank you, Desmond, Aaliyah, and Kevin. We hope to have you back for many events. It's such an honor to have you here. Kevin, I also just want to shout out, thank you for talking about boundaries there at the end. Someone told me once that the creation of boundaries is a loving act, to ourselves and to the people around us. And, if my boundaries have been crossed, I have a part in that. Did I let my boundaries get crossed? Right. So thank you for reminding that, because that's like a bulletin on my board, so that's very important for me. And Aaliyah and Desmond, thank you so much too for all your contributions and all y'all for being here today. So I hope you have a great rest of your day. Black History Month is every day of the year, y'all. Remember that. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.